A warning to all of our brave men and women in our military: Pete Hegseth will never take responsibility for his orders. You'll be left alone to face the consequences of his irresponsible and illegal orders. All of you are now scapegoats. And that is why this is a who raised y'all. This is street politics. This should have been a who raised y'all. No, cause who raised these MAGAs to sign up and wear a hat and throw a flag for somebody who takes no accountability? What you trying to tell me? Shout out to all the subscribers and the members here on the channel. Don't forget to like the video. My name is Reese Waters, and this is Street Politics. Well, Pete Hegseth, everybody wants the answer to one very important question. Did you order the code red?
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
I got a comment. Yeah, that definitely wasn't Pete Hegseth, because he took accountability for what he did. Colonel Jessup said, I did it, and Pete Hegseth would never say nothing like that. He's definitely no Colonel Jessup.
Meanwhile,
no, Pete Hegseth, no. Code Red is not a drink. That's what got us here.
The Washington Post broke the news reporting Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave a spoken directive, according to two people with direct knowledge of the operation. The order was to kill everybody, one of them said. Two people with direct knowledge of the operation. That means they are inside the Defense Department watching Pete Hegseth. They are like the helicopter pilot flying over the My Lai massacre and knowing that he had to do something, knowing that what he saw happening on the ground was a crime, knowing what he was watching on the ground was the worst war crime ever committed by the American military. And so he landed that helicopter. The people who are witnessing the order to kill everybody see only one way for them to try to stop such orders. And so they spoke to the kinds of reporters who have been banned from the Defense Department under Donald Trump. Reporters who are not allowed into the Defense Department press briefing room by Pete Hegseth. The Washington Post reporting on this story proves once again that access to the press briefing room is access to the least useful reporting that can be done in Washington, in the Defense Department, or in the White House, or anywhere else that has a press briefing room. Alex Horton and Ellen Nakashima of the Washington Post got this story without setting foot inside the Pentagon, because they are banned from setting foot inside the Pentagon. There is no war in Venezuela. There will never be a war in Venezuela. Donald Trump foolishly decided to publicly play with the idea of war in Venezuela to distract from the Epstein files, a distraction that has failed miserably. And while Donald Trump remains weak in the face of Vladimir Putin's murderous aggression and war-making in Ukraine, he seems to believe that he somehow looks tough by firing the most expensive weapons ever used to destroy the smallest boats ever destroyed by weapons of war. Small boats with outboard motors in the Caribbean, a place where there is no reason to be firing at anything that is floating there. There is no evidence, zero evidence, that a single boat attacked by Donald Trump has been carrying drugs. No evidence of that at all. Not one shred of evidence has been presented of a single ounce of a single drug on a single boat for attacks in which 80 people have now been killed by Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth.
I would just like to add here that when pressed for even a shred of evidence, the response that we got from our vice president was that stopping the flow of drugs into our country is the best use of our military, so you say. So we are allowed to presumably just declare that and then fire weapons, which naturally would lead us to the conclusion it would be perfectly fine for another country to just decide that about boats with outboard motors here in the United States, and y'all would be cool, right?
These are the kinds of small boats with outboard motors that you can see in small lakes in New Hampshire. They're not ocean-crossing vessels. They have no cabins. They're just open boats with outboard motors that are used for water skiing and family fishing outings in New England and California and the Great Lakes. The Washington Post report was about the first such attack on September 2nd. Quote, a missile screamed off the Trinidad coast, striking the vessel and igniting a blaze from bow to stern. For minutes, commanders watched the boat burning on a live drone feed. As the smoke cleared, they got a jolt. 2 survivors were clinging to the smoldering wreck. The Special Operations Commander ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions. 2 people familiar with the matter said the 2 men were blown apart in the water. The commander overseeing the operation from Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Admiral Frank M. Mitch Bradley, told people on the secure conference call that the survivors were still legitimate targets because they could theoretically call other traffickers to retrieve them and their cargo, according to 2 people. He ordered the second strike to fulfill Hegseth's directive that everyone must be killed. Today, the White House press secretary, who has never conducted a press briefing without lying, said that Admiral Bradley issued the order for the second strike on his own without Pete Hegseth telling him to do that. And Donald Trump's first instinct, as we know, is always to lie about everything.
Now, let's keep in mind, these are the same players, and it's crazy that these are the same players, that no moves have been made when this is something that just happened earlier this year. We're already back here again with Pete Hegseth in 2025. These are the same players who, when a reporter was invited in to discuss ongoing plans with the Houthis in Signalgate, decided to attack the reporter. Decided to call his bluff, and he actually had to present all of the sensitive data and information that he was privy to. This even after the White House had confirmed that that's what in fact happened. Pete Hegseth marched himself in front of a camera and tried to deny it and never acknowledged that that's what he did. Remember hoaxsters at the Easter egg roll?
The hoaxster!
No, hoaxsters.
Hoaxster!
Hoaxsters.
Hoaxster!
I think he said hoaxsters. Yeah. Now, I would like to talk to the MAGAs, the red pill community, the true patriots, because as Lawrence O'Donnell just laid down quite flat, and something that we've all seen, there is never accountability from this administration, and certainly not from Pete Hegseth. So I just want to ask the red pill community, because y'all love to talk about how being a man is about owning up to your mistakes and taking accountability. I would love to press you on how Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump move. I would love to press you on that. I would love to press you on that. How it's always Joe Biden's fault, or they're always an underling to throw under the bus. I would love to know just how all of this is landing with y'all. And that's before I even get to the people that have served. A warning to all of our brave men and women in our military: Pete Hegseth will never take responsibility for his orders. You'll be left alone to face the consequences of his irresponsible and illegal orders. All of you are now scapegoats. And that is why this is a who raised y'all. This is street politics. This should have been a who raised y'all. No, cause who raised these MAGAs to sign up and wear a hat and throw a flag for somebody who takes no accountability? What you trying to tell me? You basically admitting to me that you perpetrating a fraud as we speak. That's all that's telling me. Now, I would love to know, because this is the same defense secretary, and we'll get around to that. This is the same cabinet member who launched himself headlong into the DEI debate, where he wanted to question other people. So I would love to know, based on not only the litany of controversies we've already had in less than a year, but the fact that it's never his fault. He just never seems to know exactly what's happening or what's going on. I would love to know how you can explain Pete Hegseth's qualifications for this role. But there is one caveat. One caveat. You cannot mention his race or his gender. What qualifies Pete Hegseth for the, because certainly it wasn't his resume. We know it wasn't his resume. He had the paltriest resume of any defense secretary we've ever had. So what is it exactly that qualifies him to be here at this point? I got it. You said I can't mention him being a white man at all. Fox News. That's actually a pretty good answer. That's Janine Pirro. I'll accept that. I actually have to accept that. And if we're being honest, I feel like there is some admission that's being made by the administration themselves that he's not qualified. Secretary, is that, or is the double S supposed to mean something else? That's interesting. Now, when it comes to how this administration is moving, it's no shock, given that the tone is set at the top.
Mr. President, thank you so much for taking questions with your assembled cabinet. I wanted to clarify something that you had said on Sunday regarding the boat strikes near Venezuela. You had said that you didn't know if the second strike on that one boat had happened, but you wouldn't have wanted it. Now that your administration has acknowledged that it happened, do you support that second strike? And Mr. Secretary, I wanted to clarify something you had said in an interview back in September, I believe on Fox News. You said that you had watched that strike live on television. In real time, did you know that there were survivors after the initial strike?
Well, look, all I know is this. Every boat that you see get blown up, we save 25,000 on average lives. 25,000 lives.
You sure you don't want to make it 30? Why not go for 50,000? We just saying numbers now. So we just, you know what I mean? Just start counting. Honestly, if you just started counting right then, like nobody would be shocked based on what we've heard from you.
They've been sending enough of this horrible fentanyl and other things like cocaine and other things. But fentanyl right now is the leader of the pack. You
sure you don't want to throw Tylenol in there? Why not just throw Tylenol? We just saying stuff now. So just you want to throw Tylenol in there? Why don't you say cranberry sauce? Talk about that cranberry sauce filled with water.
Because a little speck on the head of a pin can kill somebody. It's very dangerous stuff. I know so many people where their sons were drug addicts. They had one little sample and they died. They couldn't believe it. As far as the attack is concerned, I still haven't gotten a lot of information because I rely on Pete. But to me, it was an attack. It wasn't one strike, two strikes, three strikes. Somebody asked me a question about the second strike. I didn't know about the second strike. I didn't know anything about people. I wasn't involved in it. I knew they took out a boat. But I would say this, they had a strike. I hear the gentleman that was in charge of that is extraordinary. He's an extraordinary person. I'll let Pete speak about him. But Pete was satisfied. Pete didn't know about second attack having to do with two people. I guess Pete would have to speak to it.
Well, why do we need Pete then? Why do we need Pete? he seems to be pretty extraneous in this whole process. You can't simultaneously talk about how nobody knows anything and also legitimize your presence. That's how that works. But certainly, I'm sure once Pete has the mic, he can make things worse.
Watch that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever, where all the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do. And by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat.
It was a game on? Was there a game on you had to leave? Oh, it was happy hour? It was happy hour, so you left. Gotcha. So you just decided to abandon. Okay. All right. Fair enough. And as wild as it is, I actually have to credit the press here for asking these questions when they have access to Pete Hegseth, because his sensitivity and I guess his overqualification for this job has led him to the point where he's not even pressed with these kinds of questions on a regular basis. Y'all heard about just how paltry the Pentagon press corps is at this point, right? Yeah. Even got Laura Loomer in place. So you can imagine the hard-hitting journalism that's happening in the Pentagon as we speak. I'm pretty sure the guy that was posting as Laverne Spicer actually got invited to the Pentagon. I heard, yeah, Regina, our researcher, hit me to that. I guess that was a suitable qualification to get a Pentagon press credential, but not the people that broke this story for the Washington Post. You feel me? Yeah, this is the same administration that tried to get all of the news organizations to sign off on what they report. That's how overqualified Pete is to handle this job, which is ostensibly communication, because he certainly doesn't have the tactical background to justify his presence. So even the guy who's only in place for communication purposes cannot deal with an objective media. But he wants to challenge other people's qualifications. I can tell you this, Pete. That's not going to work on Congress. No, buying the first round is not going to work neither.
Have a vote on the resolution that you supported from Senator Kaine. That would be a little bit different now that we're deeper and know more about some of these strikes in the Caribbean.
I think more people are coming around to be concerned about what's going on when you have Lindsey Graham, the Wall Street Journal, and other Republicans saying that the second strike, bombing people who are shipwrecked or clinging to wreckage, that would be illegal in the words of people who are very supportive of what the president's doing. That's a whole new scenario. So I think we've entered into uncharted territory here. I think there's a broad consensus that it's illegal to kill people who are clinging to wreckage. I think there's still some question whether the initial bombing is illegal as well. I think that you can't really just say, well, we're at war, we're not declaring war, and Congress is not going to be allowed to vote on this, but because we're at war, we say these people are combatants, we can do whatever we want, including killing them the first time, or if they're still floating around after we've tried to kill them once, killing them again. I think even the administration knows they made a big mistake here, because a couple of months later, what did they do? Then they rescued people. But even that leads to more questions. The people they rescued, they didn't prosecute. They didn't say, well, we scooped up 2 people, we scooped up their guns and their weapons and the drugs that were floating on the boat. No mention of any kind of drugs or anything, no evidence, no interrogation. Normally, you'd interrogate people all the way up the line. We just got a letter back from the Coast Guard today. Their overall statistics are that 25% of boats that are boarded don't have drugs on them. We now have specific information from the Coast Guard that of the boats captured by the Coast Guard before we started the Bomb Them to Smithereens campaign, in the traditional sense, when the Coast Guard captured boats off of Venezuela, 21% of them did not have drugs. So the idea that we're just blowing up boats where historically the rate is 21% of them are not even smugglers is outrageous. Hopefully this is going to unify the American people to stand up and say killing people willy-nilly is against the law.
Do you support broadening this investigation beyond that September 2nd strike? And who ultimately bears responsibility? Is it the Secretary of Defense or is it the Admiral?
I think what unifies people is the second strike, and I think that's what's going to bring people together. When you have people from Lindsey Graham to the Wall Street Journal saying that the second strike is illegal according to the laws of our military contact, even in times of war, it's illegal. So the first attacks, our question is, are we at war? And if we're at war, should Congress vote? That's a first issue. The second issue, though, is even if you accept the first strikes, most people are saying the second strikes aren't. I don't like to see political figures pointing their finger at military figures. Military people take orders, and there's a question about, when they don't take orders, whether things are legal or not legal. But in this sense, it looks to me like they're trying to pin the blame on somebody else and not them. There's a very distinct statement that was said on Sunday. Secretary Hegseth said he had no knowledge of this and it did not happen. It was fake news. It didn't happen. And then the next day from the podium at the White House they're saying it did happen. So either he was lying to us on Sunday or he's incompetent and didn't know it had happened.
Now, you might be wondering, what is this all for? Because I already mentioned the explanation that J.D. Vance gave. Trump is acting like he doesn't even know what's going on in Venezuela. What is the there? What is all of this about?
My sense is that they wanted to use the Alien Enemies Act to illegally arrest and deport people from this country that actually weren't subject to deportation. They decided the Alien Enemies Act was a way to do that. They then realized the Alien Enemies Act required a war, so then they declared a war. Then they needed a reason for the war, so then they reverse engineered some sort of reason for the war. Mm-hmm. Ostensibly right now, the reason for the war is to stop drug trafficking into the United States. Today, the man convicted of the largest volume of drug trafficking in the history of the United States was just freed from prison by Donald Trump, the former president of Honduras.
Let's unpack. So this entire thing, at least as far as Trump and Vance are concerned, has fallen under the guise of the war on drugs. But simultaneously to that, they just freed the former president of Honduras, who was the largest convicted trafficker in the history of our country. So come again about what this is about and the clumsiness of doing it at the exact same time. Now, we've seen this before. Because when they first started rolling out ICE, and they first started hitting the timeline, all these ICE videos, they sat there and did the white South Africans at the same time. It's this, you know what I mean? They're not going to make you wait long. They are not going to make you wait long. And, we are very low on things to think fondly, remember fondly of 2025 and Trump 47. But the fact that they always give you the necessary refuting evidence is the one.
So clearly, if that's the area of focus, that isn't the justification for this war. So what are we doing there in the first place? Why are we blowing out of the water and killing people in boats with outboard motors, some of which aren't even pointed towards the United States, let alone verified to have drugs on them, let alone even if they were coming to the United States and they had the capacity to reach the United States and they were filled with drugs, why isn't it possible to just interdict them the way that we do with the Coast Guard, where you go and take the drugs and then put those people on trial and investigate and then follow the drugs to their source of origin and then take care of it there? Like, none of this makes any sense. It feels like They bumbled themselves into a profoundly incoherent and illegal situation in which they decided the one true benefit they were getting out of all of it is that they were getting video game style visuals to play on Fox News and put on TikTok. And they liked that. So now they have put this admiral, the commander of Southern Command, every senior officer in that command, and all of the servicemen and women who serve there in the position of potentially being held liable for murder or war crimes until the statute of limitations on those matters runs. And I don't even know what it would be. And by backing and bumbling and shambolically rambling themselves into this mess, I'm less worried about the fate of the bad guys who have gotten us here than I am about the good people who've been put in the way of this mess.
And if you object to the hypothesis that Rachel Maddow has laid out, I would love to refer you to earlier in this video where we struggled to find his qualifications to even be here. And just as I just said, they always will give you the refuting evidence. They will always just lead you right to water when it comes to the truth. This is also happening at the same time as they're trying to press Senator Mark Kelly for reminding service members that they don't have to obey illegal orders. Just so I'm clear, saying something like you don't have to obey illegal orders, the sky is blue and water is wet, and illegal orders are by their very definition problematic. Well, that wouldn't be a red flag, now would it? That wouldn't happen to be a red flag, now would it? That's happening at the exact same time as now you are happening to be passing the buck when it comes to potential war crimes in Venezuela. Well, this seems pretty clear to me, but everything that's clear to me isn't always clear to the American people. So I can never tell how they see it too?
President Trump is trying to silence me, threatening to kill me for saying what is true. And he sent his Secretary of Defense after me. He makes these threats to silence people. And if that doesn't work, he abuses his power to intimidate people. And with the consent of Republicans in the United States Senate, he has surrounded himself with people like the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who will do whatever he says with no question, no matter what. Trump and Hegseth, they care more about publicity than they do about the rule of law. That's how I ended up finding out via a tweet that the Secretary of Defense was ordering an investigation into me. The same Secretary of Defense who has, from the moment he was nominated, has been historically unqualified for this position.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth very much in the spotlight over growing scrutiny on these questions of the deadly attack in the Caribbean that have raised questions about a possible war crime. Let's talk to CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton. Again, Hegseth is no stranger to controversy here. This is a new round of focus on him for whatever role he may or may not have played. Where does he sit with the American people right now?
Yeah, this is not the first time that we have covered Pete Hegseth, and there's a reason why, and that is because he has simply put not been a popular guy in the American electorate. I mean, Pete Hegseth's net favorability in the last year, positive. There have been no polls in which his net favorability has been positive. Every single poll that I could find in the Roper Center archives has his net favorability in the negative. From when Donald Trump first nominated him nearly a year ago or about a year ago to now, every single poll has found that the American people are more likely to dislike than like him. And the first poll that was taken found that the plurality of Americans said that the United States Senate should not confirm him to the post of Secretary of Defense.
No polls?
No polls. Not 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All of those, the reputable polls in the Roper Center archive.
All right. Is that because people have no interest in Pete Hegseth?
No, this is the whole thing, which is that Pete Hegseth, I said at the beginning of this, has been generating so much interest, far more interest than the normal defense secretary. I was just interested in the polls that were asking the popularity rating of recent defense secretaries. There have been at least 10 in terms of Pete Hegseth. There were 0 for Lloyd Austin. Esper had 0. Mad Dog Jim Mattis had only 2. This is extremely unusual for a defense secretary to be generating this much interest, especially when we're not at a time of war. You have to go all the way back to Bob Gates to find this many polls asking about the popularity rating of a defense secretary. And of course, Bob Gates served 4 times as long so far as Pete Hegseth did, and of course, that was during a time of war.
Okay, so given this new round of controversy swirling around Pete Hegseth, what are the markets saying about his chances of sticking around?
This is, I think, a great chance to use the prediction market odds. Chance to be the first to leave Trump's cabinet. Pete Hegseth, on Friday, it was just 18%. It's now doubled. It's now doubled to 35% given the recent controversy, John Berman. So a lot of folks out there who are putting their money where their mouth is think there's a far better chance that Pete Hegseth exits the cabinet now, being the first one to back on Friday. And one last thing, Mr. Berman, just to put this in some perspective for you, the chance to be the first to leave Trump's cabinet, Pete Hegseth, 35%, Pam Bondi, just 10%. And then we've got this gentleman over here.
Steve Myron.
Steve Myron at 8%. But again, that 35% way higher than the 10, this doubling, you were very interested in.
Doubled in the last few days. That does tell you something.
Ooh, Pete, you in trouble. You in trouble. Not even throwing Cash Patel under the bus could save you from being number one. The only upset is I'm shocked that Pam Bondi isn't higher. I thought she would be permanent at 50%, but you know, it's been that bad. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I hope you had a beautiful start to your holiday season. Also, shout out to everybody that took advantage of our holiday sale over at the People's Get Up and ReeseWaters.com. And if you didn't, look on the bright side. At least you didn't wait in line for one of them Target bags.
Could have done, but I really want to do this. So I'm so excited to show you what I got in my Target grab bag this year. I waited all night so I could get this. Okay, so the first thing I got was, they hate you.
But there is good news to all my members out there. Be on the lookout for your discount code for merch, which will extend beyond the holidays.
Finger licking good special. That's what I'm talking about.
Also extending beyond the holidays, this malfunctioning administration. And sometimes I just can't wait for the whole process in order to talk down on DEI hires. So I'm going to roll out breaking news. Be on the lookout for those. The thumbnails will look a little bit different. I might look a little, no, I'm gonna look the same. I'm gonna look exactly the same. Oh, that must be some fan art. Hey Reese, I watch your show every night. I love what you're doing and how you conduct yourself. Please send me your address so I can send you this picture that I did. See the attached. Thank you, Renisa. Oh, now look at that. No, that's me. That was me. It don't look, in the multiverse. In the multiverse, I'm a prince from Africa. Wakanda. Well, thank you so much, Renisa. I very much appreciate it. And to the rest of you, feel free to send me whatever you got to admin@reesewaters.com. But not perishables. Don't send me perishables. For that, you just donate that to Ray J. Yeah. Who get arrested on Thanksgiving? I mean, really?